Question 183. Which of the following can you use to set spending thresholds? And the options are A. Azure Policy, B. Azure TCO, C. Azure Cost Management plus Billing, D. Azure Pricing Calculator. And the correct answer is option C. Azure Cost Management plus Billing. Explanation. From the official Azure documentation, with Azure products and services, you only pay for what you use. As you create and use Azure resources, you are charged for the resources. Because of the deployment ease for new resources, the cost of your workloads can jump significantly without proper analysis and monitoring. We use cost management plus billing features to conduct billing administrative tasks such as paying your bill, manage billing access to cost, download cost and uses data that was used to generate your monthly invoice, proactively apply data analysis to your cost, set spending thresholds, identify opportunities for workload changes that can optimize your spending. Next question. Azure Cosmos DB is an example of a dash offering, and the options are A. Platform as a Service PaaS, B. Serverless Computing, C. Infrastructure as a Service IaaS, D. Software as a Service SaaS. And the correct answer is option A. Platform as a Service. Explanation. From the official Azure documentation, Azure Cosmos DB is an example of Platform as a Service. Azure Cosmos DB is a fully managed NoSQL database for modern app development. Single-digit millisecond response times and automatic and instant scalability guarantee speed at any scale. Business continuity is assured with SLA-backed availability and enterprise-grade security. App development is faster and more productive thanks to turnkey multi-region data distribution anywhere in the world, open source APIs, and SDKs for popular languages. As a fully managed service, Azure Cosmos DB takes database administration off your hands with automatic management, updates, and patching. It also handles capacity management with cost-effective serverless and automatic scaling options that respond to application needs to match capacity with demand. Next question. Which of the following can help you manage multiple Azure subscriptions? And the options are A. Resource groups, B. Policies, C. Management groups, D. Blueprints. And the correct answer is option C. Management groups. Explanation. From the official Azure documentation, if you have only a few subscriptions, it's fairly easy to manage them independently. But what if you have many subscriptions? Then you can create a management group hierarchy to help manage your subscriptions and resources. For your subscriptions, Azure management groups help you efficiently manage access, policies, and compliance. Each management group contains one or more subscriptions. Azure arranges management groups in a single hierarchy. You define this hierarchy in your Azure Active Directory tenant to align with your organization's structure and needs. The top level is called the root management group. You can define up to 6 levels of management groups in your hierarchy. Only one management group contains a subscription. Azure provides 4 levels of management scope. Number 1, management groups. Number 2, subscriptions. Number 3, resource groups. Number 4, resources. If you apply any access or policy at one level in the hierarchy, it propagates down to the lower levels. A resource owner or subscription owner can't alter an inherited policy. This limitation helps improve governance. This inheritance model lets you arrange the subscriptions in your hierarchy, so each subscription follows appropriate policies and security controls. Next question. You have managed a web app that you developed and deployed on-prem for a long time, but would now like to move it to Azure and relieved of all the manual administration and maintenance. Which of the following buckets would be most suitable for your use case? And the options are A. Software as a service, B. Infrastructure as a service, C. Database as a service, D. Platform as a service. And the correct answer is option D. Platform as a service. Explanation. From the official Azure documentation, Azure App Service is a platform as a service offering that lets you create web and mobile apps for any platform or device and connect to data anywhere in the cloud or on-premises. App Service includes the web and mobile capabilities that were previously delivered separately as Azure Websites and Azure Mobile Services. Next question. As the cloud admin of your organization, you want to block your employees from accessing your apps from specific locations. Which of the following can help you achieve this? And the options are A. Azure Single Sign-On (SSO), B. Azure Sentinel, C. Azure Active Directory Conditional Access, D. Azure Role-Based Access Control (RBAC). And the correct answer is option C. Azure Active Directory Conditional Access. Explanation. From the official Azure documentation, the modern security perimeter now extends beyond an organization's network to include user and device identity. Organizations can use identity-driven signals as part of their access control decisions. Conditional access brings signals together to make decisions and enforce organizational policies. Azure AD Conditional Access is at the heart of the new identity-driven control plane. Conditional access policies at their simplest are if-then statements. If a user wants to access a resource, then they must complete an action. Example, a payroll manager wants to access the payroll application and is required to do multi-factor authentication to access it. Next question. Which of these approaches is not a cost-saving solution? And the options are A. Use the correct and appropriate instance size based on current workload. B. Use reserved instances with Azure Hybrid. C. Load balancing the incoming traffic. D. Making use of Azure Cost Management. And the correct answer is option C. Load balancing the incoming traffic. Explanation. Load balancing is done to increase the overall availability of the application, not to optimize cost. Next question. Dash. Service is available to transfer on-premises data to blob storage when large data sets or network constraints make uploading data over the wire unrealistic. And the options are A. Azure Data Box, B. Azure File Sync, C. Azure Blob Storage, D. Azure Data Factory. And the correct answer is option A. Azure Data Box. Explanation. From the official Azure documentation, Azure Blob Storage is Microsoft's object storage solution for the cloud. Blob storage is optimized for storing massive amounts of unstructured data. Unstructured data is data that doesn't adhere to a particular data model or definition, such as text or binary data. Blob storage is designed for serving images or documents directly to a browser, storing files for distributed access, streaming video and audio, writing to log files, storing data for backup and restore, disaster recovery and archiving, storing data for analysis by an on-premises or Azure-hosted service. A number of solutions exist for migrating existing data to blob storage. Azure Data Box service is available to transfer on-premises data to blob storage when large data sets or network constraints make uploading data over the wire unrealistic. Depending on your data size, you can request Azure Data Box Disk, Azure Data Box, or Azure Data Box Heavy devices from Microsoft. You can then copy your data to those devices and ship them back to Microsoft to be uploaded into blob storage. EZCopy is an easy-to-use command line tool for Windows and Linux that copies data to add from blob storage across containers or across storage accounts. For more information about EZCopy, see Transfer Data with the EZCopy v10 and more. Next question. Dash. allows you to implement your system's logic into readily available blocks of code that can run anytime you need to respond to critical events. And the options are A. Azure Functions, B. Azure Cognitive Services, C. Azure Kinect DK, D. Azure Application Insights, E. Azure Quantum. And the correct answer is option A. Azure Functions. Explanation. From the official Azure documentation, Azure Functions is a serverless solution that allows you to write less code, maintain less infrastructure, and save on cost. Instead of worrying about deploying and maintaining servers, the cloud infrastructure provides all the up-to-date resources needed to keep your applications running. You focus on the pieces of code that matter most to you, and Azure Functions handles the rest. Azure Functions provides compute on demand in two significant ways. First, Azure Functions allows you to implement your system's logic into readily available blocks of code. These code blocks are called functions. Different functions can run anytime you need to respond to critical events. Second, as requests increase, Azure Functions meets the demand with as many resources and function instances as necessary, but only while needed. As requests fall, any extra resources and application instances drop off automatically. Next question. Which of the following can help you download cost and uses data that was used to generate your monthly invoice? And the options are A. Azure Advisor, B. Azure Resource Manager, C. Azure Monitor, D. Azure Cost Management. And the correct answer is option D. Azure Cost Management. Explanation. From the official Azure documentation, by using the Microsoft Cloud, you can significantly improve the technical performance of your business workloads. It can also reduce your cost and the overhead required to manage organizational assets. However, the business opportunity creates a risk because of the potential for waste and inefficiencies that are introduced into your cloud deployments. Cost management plus billing is a suite of tools provided by Microsoft that help you analyze, manage, and optimize the cost of your workloads. Using the suite helps ensure that your organization is taking advantage of the benefits provided by the cloud. With Azure products and services, you only pay for what you use. As you create and use Azure resources, you are charged for the resources. Because of the deployment ease for new resources, the cost of your workloads can jump significantly without proper analysis and monitoring. You use cost management plus billing features to conduct billing administrative tasks such as paying your bill, manage billing access to cost, download cost and uses data that was used to generate your monthly invoice, proactively apply data analysis to your cost, set spending thresholds, identify opportunities for workload changes that can optimize your spending. Next question. Dash is a strategy that employs a series of mechanisms to slow the advance of an attack that's aimed at acquiring unauthorized access to information. Each layer provides protection so that if one layer is breached, a subsequent layer is already in place to prevent further exposure. And the options are A. Defense in series, B. Defense in steps, C. Defense in depth, D. Defense in layers. And the correct answer is option C. Defense in depth. Explanation. From the official Azure documentation, defense in depth is a strategy that employs a series of mechanisms to slow the advance of an attack that's aimed at acquiring unauthorized access to information. Each layer provides protection so that if one layer is breached, a subsequent layer is already in place to prevent further exposure. Microsoft applies a layered approach to security, both in its physical data centers and across Azure services. The objective of defense in depth is to protect information and prevent it from being stolen by individuals who aren't authorized to access it. Next question. As the owner of streaming platform deployed on Azure, you notice a huge spike in traffic whenever a new web series is released, but moderate traffic otherwise. Which of the following is a clear benefit of this type of workload? And the options are A. Load balancing, B. High latency, C. High availability. D. Elasticity. And the correct answer is option D. Elasticity. Explanation. Elasticity in this case is the ability to provide additional compute resource when needed, spikes, and reduce the compute resource when not needed to reduce cost. Load balancing and high availability are also great advantages this streaming platform would enjoy, but elasticity is the option that best describes the workload in the question. Auto-scaling is an example of elasticity. Next question. Which of the following can repeatedly deploy your infrastructure throughout the development life cycle and have confidence your resources are deployed in a consistent manner? And the options are A. The Azure API Management Service. B. Azure Resource Manager Templates. C. Azure Templates. D. Management Groups. And the correct answer is option B. Azure Resource Manager Templates. Explanation. Azure Resource Manager Templates is correct since templates are idempotent same, which means you can deploy the same template many times and get the same resource types in the same state. Next question. Dash asynchronously replicates the same applications and data across other Azure regions for disaster recovery protection. And the options are A. Auto-region replicas. B. Auto-region replication. C. A cross-region replication. D. Cross-region replication. And the correct answer is option D. Cross-region replication. Explanation. From the official Azure documentation, to ensure customers are supported across the world, Azure maintains multiple geographies. These discrete demarcations define a disaster recovery and data residency boundary across one or multiple Azure regions. Cross-region replication is one of several important pillars in the Azure business continuity and disaster recovery strategy. Cross-region replication builds on the synchronous replication of your applications and data that exist by using availability zones within your primary Azure region for high availability. Cross-region replication asynchronously replicates the same applications and data across other Azure regions for disaster recovery protection. Some Azure services take advantage of cross-region replication to ensure business continuity and protect against data loss. Azure provides several storage solutions that make use of cross-region replication to ensure data availability. For example, Azure Geo-Redundant Storage replicates data to a secondary region automatically. This approach ensures that data is durable if the primary region isn't recoverable. Next question. Which of the following is a Cloud Security Posture Management (CSPM) and Cloud Workload Protection Platform (CWPP) for all of your Azure on-premises and multi-cloud Amazon AWS and Google GCP resources? And the options are A. Azure Sentinel. B. Microsoft Defender for Cloud. C. Azure Key Vault. D. Azure DDoS Protection. E. Azure Front Door. And the correct answer is option B. Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Explanation. From the official Azure documentation, Microsoft Defender for Cloud is a cloud security posture management and cloud workload protection platform for all of your Azure on-premises and multi-cloud resources. Defender for Cloud fills three vital needs as you manage the security of your resources and workloads in the cloud and on-premises. Number 1. Defender for Cloud Secure Score continually assesses your security posture, so you can track new security opportunities and precisely report on the progress of your security efforts. Number 2. Defender for Cloud Recommendations secures your workloads with step-by-step actions that protect your workloads from known security risk. Number 3. Defender for Cloud Alerts defends your workloads in real time, so you can react immediately and prevent security events from developing. Question 197. Which of the following is an offline tier optimized for storing data that is rarely accessed and that has flexible latency requirements? And the options are A. Infrequent tier. B. Cool tier, C. Archive tier, D. Hot tier. And the correct answer is option C. Archive tier. Explanation. Data stored in the cloud grows at an exponential pace. To manage cost for your expanding storage needs, it can be helpful to organize your data based on how frequently it will be accessed and how long it will be retained. Azure Storage offers different access tiers so that you can store your blob data in the most cost-effective manner based on how it's being used. Azure Storage access tiers include Hot tier, an online tier optimized for storing data that is accessed or modified frequently. The Hot tier has the highest storage cost, but the lowest access cost. Cool tier, an online tier optimized for storing data that is infrequently accessed or modified. Data in the cool tier should be stored for a minimum of 30 days. The cool tier has lower storage cost and higher access cost compared to the hot tier. Archive tier, an offline tier optimized for storing data that is rarely accessed and that has flexible latency requirements on the order of hours. Data in the archive tier should be stored for a minimum of 180 days. Next question. It's possible to have multiple subscriptions inside a management group. And the options are A. No, B. Yes, and the correct answer is option B. Yes. Explanation. When you define your management group hierarchy, first create the root management group. Then move all existing subscriptions in the directory into the root management group. New subscriptions always go into the root management group initially. Later you can move them to another management group. What happens when you move a subscription to an existing management group? The subscription inherits the policies and role assignments from the management group hierarchy above it. Establish mini subscriptions for your Azure workloads. Then create other subscriptions to contain Azure services that other subscriptions share. Do you expect your Azure environment to grow? Then create management groups for production and non-production now, and apply appropriate policies and access controls at the management group level. As you add new subscriptions to each management group, those subscriptions inherit the appropriate controls. Next question. When you cancel an Azure subscription, a resource lock can block the subscription cancellation. Is it true or false? And the correct answer is false. Explanation. As an administrator, you can lock an Azure subscription, resource group, or resource to protect them from accidental user deletion and modifications. The lock overrides any user permissions. You can set locks that prevent either deletions or modifications. In the portal, these locks are called delete and read only. In the command line, these locks are called cannot delete and read only. In the left navigation panel, the subscription lock features name is resource logs, while the resource group lock features name is logs. If you have a delete lock on a resource and attempt to delete its resource group, the feature blocks the whole delete operation. Even if the resource group or other resources in the resource group are unlocked, the deletion doesn't happen. You never have a partial deletion. When you cancel an Azure subscription, a resource lock doesn't block the subscription cancellation. Azure preserves your resources by deactivating them instead of immediately deleting them. Azure only deletes your resources permanently after a waiting period. Next question. Your colleague is looking for an Azure service that can help them understand how their applications are performing and proactively identify issues that affect them and the resources they depend on. What's your recommendation? And the options are A. Azure Advisor, B. Azure Service Health, C. Azure Monitor, D. Azure Comprehend. And the correct answer is option C. Azure Monitor. Explanation. Azure Monitor helps you maximize the availability and performance of your applications and services. It delivers a comprehensive solution for collecting, analyzing, and acting on telemetry from your cloud and on-premises environments. This information helps you understand how your applications are performing and proactively identify issues that affect them and the resources they depend on. Azure Service Health notifies you about Azure Service incidents and planned maintenance, so you can take action to mitigate downtime. Azure Comprehend is not an existing service. Azure Advisor helps to quickly and easily optimize your Azure deployments. Azure Advisor analyzes your configurations and uses telemetry and offers personalized, actionable recommendations to help you optimize your Azure resources for reliability, security, operational excellence, performance, and cost. Next question. Which of the following is the foundation for building enterprise data lakes on Azure and is built on top of Azure Blob storage? And the options are A. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 3, B. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 4, C. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 1, D. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. And the correct answer is option D. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Explanation. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 is a set of capabilities dedicated to big data analytics built on Azure Blob storage. Data Lake Storage Gen 2 converges the capabilities of Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 1 with Azure Blob storage. For example, Data Lake Storage Gen 2 provides file system semantics, file level security, and scale. Because these capabilities are built on Blob storage, you'll also get low-cost, tiered storage with high availability or disaster recovery capabilities. Next question. In a public cloud model, you get dedicated hardware, storage, and network devices than the other organizations or cloud tenants. And the options are A. Yes, B. No, and the correct answer is option B. No. Explanation. Public clouds are the most common type of cloud computing deployment. The cloud resources, like servers and storage, are owned and operated by a third-party cloud service provider and delivered over the internet. With the public cloud, all hardware, software, and other supporting infrastructure are owned and managed by the cloud provider. Microsoft Azure is an example of a public cloud. In a public cloud, you share the same hardware, storage, and network devices with other organizations or cloud tenants, and you access services and manage your account using a web browser. Public cloud deployments are frequently used to provide web-based email, online office applications, storage, and testing and development environments. Next question. Azure Pay-as-you-go is an example of which cloud expenditure model? And the options are A. Operational, OpEx, B. Capital, CapEx, and the correct answer is option A. Operational. Explanation. One of the major changes that you will face when you move from on-premises cloud to the public cloud is the switch from capital expenditure, buying hardware, to operating expenditure, paying for service as you use it. However, this switch also requires more careful management of your cost. Next question. Which of the following services can you use to calculate your estimated hourly or monthly cost for using Azure? And the options are A. Azure Cost Management, B. Azure Pricing Calculator, C. Azure Total Cost of Ownership TCO Calculator, D. Azure Calculator. And the correct answer is option B. Azure Pricing Calculator. Explanation. You can use the Azure Pricing Calculator to calculate your estimated hourly or monthly cost for using Azure. Azure TCO, on the other hand, is primarily used to estimate the cost savings you can realize by migrating your workloads to Azure. Next question. Dash is a security framework that uses the principles of explicit verification, least privileged access, and assuming breach to keep users and data secure, while allowing for common scenarios like access to applications from outside the network perimeter. And the options are A. No trust, B. Zero trust, C. least trust, D. less trust. And the correct answer is option B. Zero trust. Explanation. Zero trust is a security framework that doesn't rely on the implicit trust afforded to interactions behind a secure network perimeter. Instead, it uses the principles of explicit verification, least privileged access, and assuming breach to keep users and data secure, while allowing for common scenarios like access to applications from outside the network perimeter. App developers can improve app security, minimize the impact of breaches, and ensure that their applications meet their customers' security requirements by adopting zero trust principles. Next question. When a blob is in the archive access tier, what must you do first before accessing it? And the options are A. Add it to a new resource group. B. Move it to file storage. C. Rehydrate it. D. Modify its policy. And the correct answer is option C. Rehydrate it. Next question. Is it possible for you to run both Bash and PowerShell based scripts from the Azure Cloud Shell? And the options are A. Yes. B. No. And the correct answer is option A. Yes. Explanation. Azure Cloud Shell is an interactive, authenticated, browser-accessible shell for managing Azure resources. It provides the flexibility of choosing the shell experience that best suits the way you work, either Bash or PowerShell. Next question. Each zone is made up of one or more data centers equipped with common power, cooling, and networking. Is it true or false? And the correct answer is it's false. Explanation. Azure availability zones are unique physical locations within an Azure region and offer high availability to protect your applications and data from data centers' failures. Each zone is made up of one or more data centers equipped with independent power, cooling, and networking. Next question. An dash is a collection of policy definitions that are grouped together towards a specific goal or purpose in mind. And the options are A. Azure Bundle, B. Azure Collection, C. Azure Initiative, D. Azure Group. And the correct answer is option C. Azure Initiative. Explanation. An Azure Initiative is a collection of Azure policy definitions that are grouped together towards a specific goal or purpose in mind. Azure Initiatives simplify management of your policies by grouping a set of policies together as one single item. For example, you could use the PCI DSS built-in initiative, which has all the policy definitions that are centered around meeting PCI DSS compliance. Similar to Azure Policy, initiatives have definitions, a bunch of policies, assignments, and parameters. Once you determine the definitions that you want, you would assign the initiative to a scope so that it can be applied. Next question. Subscriptions can be moved to another management group as well as merged into one single subscription. And the options are A. No, B. Yes, and the correct answer is option A. No. Explanation. Even though subscriptions can be moved to another management group, they cannot be merged into one single subscription. Next question. Each virtual network can have only one VPN gateway. And the options are A. No, B. Yes, and the correct answer is option B. Yes. Explanation. VPN Gateway sends encrypted traffic between an Azure virtual network and on-premises location over the public internet. You can also use VPN Gateway to send encrypted traffic between Azure virtual networks over the Microsoft network. A VPN gateway is a specific type of virtual network gateway. Each virtual network can have only one VPN gateway. However, you can create multiple connections to the same VPN gateway. When you create multiple connections to the same VPN gateway, All VPN tunnels share the available gateway bandwidth. What is a VPN gateway? When you configure a virtual network gateway, you configure a setting that specifies the gateway type. The gateway type determines how the virtual network gateway will be used and the actions that the gateway takes. The gateway type VPN specifies that the type of virtual network gateway created is a VPN gateway. This distinguishes it from an ExpressRoute gateway, which uses a different gateway type. A virtual network can have two virtual network gateways, one VPN gateway and one ExpressRoute gateway. For more information, see Gateway Types. Question 212. Which service would you use to reduce the overhead of manually assigning permissions to a set of resources? And the options are A. Azure Logic Apps, B. Azure Policy, C. Azure Trust Center, D. Azure Resource Manager. And the correct answer is option D. Azure Resource Manager. Explanation. Azure Resource Manager is the deployment and management service for Azure. It provides a management layer that enables you to create, update, and delete resources in your Azure account. You use management features like access control, locks, and tags to secure and organize your resources after deployment. To learn about Azure Resource Manager templates, see the ARM template overview. Next question. It is possible to deploy a new Azure Virtual Network using Power Automate on a Google Chromebook. And the options are A. No, B. Yes, and the correct answer is option A. No. Next question. The Microsoft Dash provides a variety of content, tools, and other resources about Microsoft security, privacy, and compliance practices. And the options are A. Blueprints, B. Advisor, C. Service Trust Portal, D. Privacy Policy. And the correct answer is option C. Service Trust Portal. Explanation. The Microsoft Service Trust Portal provides a variety of content, tools, and other resources about Microsoft security, privacy, and compliance practices. The Service Trust Portal contains details about Microsoft's implementation of controls and processes that protect our cloud services and the customer data therein. To access some of the resources on the Service Trust Portal, you must log in as an authenticated user with your Microsoft Cloud Services account and review and accept the Microsoft Non-Disclosure Agreement for compliance materials. Next question. All resources in a VNet can communicate outbound to the internet by default. And the options are A. No, B. Yes, and the correct answer is option B. Yes. Explanation. Azure Virtual Network is the fundamental building block for your private network in Azure. VNet enables many types of Azure resources, such as Azure Virtual Machines, to securely communicate with each other, the internet, and on-premises networks. VNet is similar to a traditional network that you would operate in your own data center, but brings with it additional benefits of Azure's infrastructure such as scale, availability, and isolation. All resources in a VNet can communicate outbound to the internet by default. You can communicate inbound to a resource by assigning a public IP address or a public load balancer. You can also use public IP or public load balancer to manage your outbound connections. To learn more about outbound connections in Azure, see Outbound Connections, Public IP Addresses, and a Load Balancer. Next question. Dash lets you extend your on-premises networks into the Microsoft Cloud over a private connection with the help of a connectivity provider. And the options are A. Azure ExpressRoute, B. Azure Sentinel, C. Azure DNS, D. Azure Firewall, E. Azure Virtual Network. And the correct answer is option A. Azure ExpressRoute. Explanation. ExpressRoute lets you extend your on-premises networks into the Microsoft Cloud over a private connection with the help of a connectivity provider. With ExpressRoute, you can establish connections to Microsoft Cloud services such as Microsoft Azure and Microsoft 365. Connectivity can be from any to any IP VPN network, a point-to-point Ethernet network, or a virtual cross-connection through a connectivity provider at a colocation facility. ExpressRoute connections don't go over the public internet. This allows ExpressRoute connections to offer more reliability, faster speeds, consistent latencies, and higher security than typical connections over the internet. For information on how to connect your network to Microsoft using ExpressRoute, see ExpressRoute Connectivity Models. Next question. Azure Cosmos DB is the software as a service SaaS offering from Microsoft Azure. And the options are A. No, it is a PaaS offering. B. No, it is an IaaS offering. C. Yes, it is a SaaS offering. And the correct answer is option A. No, it is a PaaS offering. Explanation. Azure Cosmos DB is an example of a platform as a service offering. Next question. You have been planning to decommission your on-prem database hosting gigabytes of data. Which of the following is true about data ingress moving into for Azure? And the options are A. It is charged per hour of data transferred. B. It is charged $0.05 per TB. C. It is free of cost. D. It is charged $0.05 per GB. And the correct answer is option C. It is free of cost. Explanation. Bandwidth refers to data moving in and out of Azure data centers, as well as data moving between Azure data centers. Other transfers are explicitly covered by the content delivery network, ExpressRoute pricing or peering. Next question. A dash in Azure Monitor monitors your telemetry and captures a signal to see if the signal meets the criteria of a preset condition. If the conditions are met, an alert is triggered, which initiates the associated action group. And the options are A. Preset rule, B. Preset condition, C. Alert condition, D. Alert rule. And the correct answer is option D. Alert rule. Explanation. Alerts help you detect and address issues before users notice them by proactively notifying you when Azure Monitor data indicates that there may be a problem with your infrastructure or application. You can alert on any metric or log data source in the Azure Monitor data platform. An alert rule monitors your telemetry and captures a signal that indicates that something is happening on a specified target. The alert rule captures the signal and checks to see if the signal meets the criteria of the condition. If the conditions are met, an alert is triggered, which initiates the associated action group and updates the state of the alert. Next question. Dash brings signals together to make decisions and enforce organizational policies. In simple terms, they are if-then statements. If a user wants to access a resource, then they must complete an action. And the options are A. Conditional access, B. Logical access, C. Active Directory access, D. Demand access. And the correct answer is option A. Conditional access. Explanation. The modern security perimeter now extends beyond an organization's network to include user and device identity. Organizations can use identity-driven signals as part of their access control decisions. Conditional access brings signals together to make decisions and enforce organizational policies. Azure AD Conditional Access is at the heart of the new identity-driven control plane. Conditional access policies, at their simplest, are if-then statements. If a user wants to access a resource, then they must complete an action. Example. A payroll manager wants to access the payroll application and is required to do multi-factor authentication to access it. Administrators are faced with two primary goals. Number 1, empower users to be productive wherever and whenever. Number 2, protect the organization's assets. Next question. Which of the following two storage solutions are built to handle NoSQL data? And the options are A. Azure Table Storage, B. Azure NoSQL Database, C. Azure SQL Database, D. Azure Cosmos DB. And the correct answer is option A. Azure Table Storage, and option D. Azure Cosmos DB. Explanation. Azure Table Storage is a service that stores non-relational structured data, also known as structured NoSQL data in the cloud, providing a key or attribute store with a schemaless design. Because table storage is schemaless, it's easy to adapt your data as the needs of your application evolve. Azure Cosmos DB is a fully managed NoSQL database for modern app development. Single-digit millisecond response times and automatic and instant scalability guarantee speed at any scale. Next question. Enforcement is at the center of a zero-trust architecture. And the options are A. Security policy, B. Identities, C. Applications, D. Network, E. Devices, F. Data. And the correct answer is option A. Security policy. Explanation. Zero Trust is a new security model that assumes breach and verifies each request as though it originated from an uncontrolled network. A zero trust approach extends throughout the entire digital estate and serves as an integrated security philosophy and end-to-end strategy. This illustration provides a representation of the primary elements that contribute to zero trust. In the illustration, number 1, security policy enforcement is at the center of a zero trust architecture. This includes multi-factor authentication with conditional access that takes into account user account risk, device status, and other criteria and policies that you set. Number 2, identities, devices, also called endpoints, data, applications, network, and other infrastructure components are all configured with appropriate security. Policies that are configured for each of these components are coordinated with your overall zero trust strategy. For example, device policies determine the criteria for healthy devices, and conditional access policies require healthy devices for access to specific apps and data. Number 3, threat protection and intelligence monitors the environment, surfaces current risk, and takes automated action to remediate attacks. Next question. Azure DNS can manage DNS records for your Azure services, but cannot provide DNS for your external resources. Is it true or false? And the correct answer is, it's false. Explanation. Azure DNS is a hosting service for DNS domains that provides name resolution by using Microsoft Azure infrastructure. By hosting your domains in Azure, you can manage your DNS records by using the same credentials, APIs, tools, and billing as your other Azure services. Azure DNS can manage DNS records for your Azure services and provide DNS for your external resources as well. Azure DNS is integrated in the Azure portal and uses the same credentials, support contract, and billing as your other Azure services. DNS billing is based on the number of DNS zones hosted in Azure and on the number of DNS queries received. To learn more about pricing, see Azure DNS pricing. Next question. If your organization has many Azure subscriptions, which of the following is useful to efficiently manage access, policies, and compliance for those subscriptions? And the options are A. Azure Management Groups, B. Azure Policy, C. Azure Subscriptions, D. Azure Blueprints. And the correct answer is option A. Azure Management Groups. Explanation. If your organization has many Azure subscriptions, you may need a way to efficiently manage access, policies, and compliance for those subscriptions. Management groups provide a governance scope above subscriptions. You organize subscriptions into management groups. The governance conditions you apply cascade by inheritance to all associated subscriptions. Management groups give you enterprise-grade management at scale, no matter what type of subscriptions you might have. However, all subscriptions within a single management group must trust the same Azure Active Directory tenant. For example, you can apply policies to a management group that limits the reasons available for virtual machine creation. This policy would be applied to all nested management groups, subscriptions, and resources, and allow VM creation only in authorized reasons. Next question. Which of the following can help you automate deployments and use the practice of infrastructure as code? And the options are A. Management groups, B. Azure Arc, C. Azure IaaS, D. ARM templates. And the correct answer is option D. ARM templates. Explanation. With the move to the cloud, many teams have adopted agile development methods. These teams iterate quickly. They need to repeatedly deploy their solutions to the cloud and know their infrastructure is in a reliable state. As infrastructure has become part of the iterative process, the division between operations and development has disappeared. Teams need to manage infrastructure and application code through a unified process. To meet these challenges, you can automate deployments and use the practice of infrastructure as code. In code, you define the infrastructure that needs to be deployed. The infrastructure code becomes part of your project. Just like application code, you store the infrastructure code in a source repository and version it. Any one of your team can run the code and deploy similar environments. To implement infrastructure as code for your Azure solutions, use Azure Resource Manager templates. The template is a JavaScript object notation JSON file that defines the infrastructure and configuration for your project. The template uses declarative syntax which lets you state that what you intend to deploy without having to write the sequence of programming commands to create it. In the template, you specify the resources to deploy and the properties for those resources. Next question. Someone in your organization accidentally deleted an important virtual machine that has led to huge revenue losses. Your senior management has tasked you with investigating who was responsible for the deletion. Which Azure service can you leverage for this task? And the options are A. Azure Event Hubs, B. Azure Monitor, C. Azure Service Health, D. Azure Arc, E. Azure Advisor. And the correct answer is option B. Azure Monitor. Explanation. Log Analytics is a tool in the Azure portal that's used to edit and run log queries with data in Azure Monitor logs. You might write a simple query that returns a set of records and then use features of Log Analytics to sort, filter, and analyze them. Or you might write a more advanced query to perform statistical analysis and visualize the results in a chart to identify a particular trend. Whether you work with the results of your queries interactively or use them with other Azure Monitor features, such as log query alerts or workbooks, Log Analytics is the tool that you will use to write and test them. Azure Advisor, incorrect, analyzes your configurations and uses telemetry and offers personalized actionable recommendations to help you optimize your Azure resources for reliability, security, operational excellence, performance, and cost. Azure Service Health, incorrect, helps you stay informed and take action with alerts for outages and a personalized dashboard for service issues. Question 227. A dash endpoint is a network interface that uses a private IP address from your virtual network. And the options are A. Internal, B. Private, C. Hybrid, D. Public. And the correct answer is option B. Private. Explanation. A private endpoint is a network interface that uses a private IP address from your virtual network. This network interface connects you privately and securely to a service that's powered by Azure Private Link. By enabling a private endpoint, you are bringing the service into your virtual network. The service could be an Azure service such as Azure Storage, Azure Cosmos DB, Azure SQL Database, your own service using Private Link service. Next question. Which of the following provides support for key migration workloads like Windows, SQL, and Linux Server, databases, data, web apps, and virtual desktops? And the options are A. Azure Migrate. B. Azure Suggestions. C. Azure Advisor. D. Azure Recommendations. And the correct answer is option A. Azure Migrate. Explanation. Azure Migrate provides all the Azure migration tools and guidance you need to plan and implement your move to the cloud and track your progress using a central dashboard that provides intelligent insights. Multiple scenarios use a comprehensive approach to migrating your application and data center estate. Get support for key migration workloads like Windows, SQL and Linux Server, databases, data, web apps, and virtual desktops. Migrate to destination including Azure Virtual Machines, Azure VMware Solution, Azure App Service, and Azure SQL Database. Migrations are holistic across VMware, Hyper-V physical server, and cloud-to-cloud migration. Next question. Which of the following services can help applications absorb unexpected traffic bursts, which prevent servers from being overwhelmed by a sudden flood of requests? And the options are A. Azure Queue Storage, B. Azure Table Storage, C. Azure Decoupled Storage, D. Azure Message Storage. And the correct answer is option B. Azure Table Storage. Explanation. Azure Queue Storage is a service for storing large numbers of messages. You access messages from anywhere in the world via authenticated calls using HTTP or HTTPS. A queue message can be up to 64 KB in size. A queue may contain millions of messages up to the total capacity limit of a storage account. Queues are commonly used to create a backlog of work to process asynchronously. Next question. Your startup plans to migrate to Azure soon, but for all the resources, you would like control of the underlying operating system and middleware. Which of the following cloud models would make the most sense? And the options are A. Infrastructure as a service, B. Software as a service, C. Platform as a service, D. Anything as a service. And the correct answer is option A. Infrastructure as a service. Explanation. Infrastructure as a service is a type of cloud computing service that offers essential compute, storage, and networking resources on demand on a pay-as-you-go basis. IaaS is one of the 4 types of cloud services, along with software as a service, platform as a service, and serverless. Migrating your organization's infrastructure to an IaaS solution helps you reduce maintenance of on-premises data centers, save money on hardware cost, and gain real-time business insights. IaaS solutions give you the flexibility to scale your IT resources up and down with demand. They also help you quickly provision new applications and increase the reliability of your underlying infrastructure. IaaS lets you bypass the cost and complexity of buying and managing physical servers and data center infrastructure. Each resource is offered as a separate service component, and you only pay for a particular resource for as long as you need it. A cloud computing service provider like Azure manages the infrastructure, while you purchase, install, configure, and manage your own software, including operating system, middleware, and applications. Incorrect answers. A. Software as a service allows users to connect to and use cloud-based apps over the internet. Common examples are email, calendaring, and office tools. In this scenario, you need to run your own apps, but the OS, middleware, and runtime are managed by the cloud provider. B. Platform as a service is a complete development and deployment environment in the cloud. PaaS includes infrastructure, servers, storage, and networking, but also middleware, development tools, business intelligence services, database management system, and more. PaaS is designed to support the complete web application lifecycle: building, testing, deploying, managing, and updating. Here as well, the OS, middleware, and runtime are managed by the cloud provider. C. Anything as a service. Irrelevant to the question completely. Next question. Which of the following can you use to calculate your estimated hourly or monthly cost for using Azure? And the options are A. Azure Pricing Calculator, B. Azure TCO Calculator. C. Azure Cost Management. D. Azure Advisor. E. Azure Billing. And the correct answer is option A. Azure Pricing Calculator. Explanation. Disclaimer. Prices are estimates and are not intended as actual price quotes. Actual prices may vary depending on the date of purchase, currency of payment, and type of agreement that you enter into with Microsoft. Contact a Microsoft sales representative for additional information on pricing. Next question. Select the valid options to pay for Azure. Choose 3 options. And the options are A. Azure Website. B. Azure Partner. C. Microsoft Representative. D. Microsoft Stores. E. Xbox Website. F. Any third-party vendor. And the correct answer is option A. Azure Website. B. Azure Partner. And option C. Microsoft Representative. Explanation. Next question. Your cloud security team is looking to block any access from untrusted sources, such as access from unknown or unexpected locations. Which of the following can they use? And the options are A. Conditional Access. B. Multi-factor authentication. C. Policies. D. Blueprints. E. Resource locks. And the correct answer is option A. Conditional Access. Explanation. Conditional access is a tool that Azure Active Directory uses to allow or deny access to resources based on identity signals. These signals include who the user is, where the user is, and what device the user is requesting access from. Conditional access is useful when you need to, number 1, require multi-factor authentication to access an application. You can configure whether all users require multi-factor authentication or only certain users, such as administrators. You can also configure whether multi-factor authentication applies to access from all networks or only untrusted networks. Number 2. Require access to services only through approved client applications. For example, you might want to allow users to access Office 365 services from a mobile device as long as they use approved client apps, like the Outlook mobile app. Number 3. Require users to access your application only from managed devices. A managed device is a device that meets your standards for security and compliance. Number 4. Block access from untrusted sources, such as access from unknown or unexpected locations. Next question. Which of the following are free? And the options are A. Data Ingress. B. Data transfer within the same region. C. Data transfer from one region to another. D. Data transfer within same availability zone. And the correct answer is option A. Data Ingress. B. Data transfer within the same region. And option D. Data transfer within same availability zone. Explanation. Next question. Which of the following is the most flexible category of cloud services? And the options are A. Infrastructure as a service. B. Software as a service. C. Platform as a service. And the correct answer is option A. Infrastructure as a service. Explanation. IaaS is the most flexible category of cloud services. It aims to give you complete control over the hardware that runs your application. Instead of buying hardware with IaaS, you rent it. Next question. Since your company has shifted to a fully remote working model, they are looking to provide employees with the best virtualized experience while saving cost by using existing eligible Windows licenses. They also want to enable bring your own device to access their desktop and applications over the internet. Which of the following would you suggest? And the options are A. Azure Virtual Desktop. B. Azure Kubernetes. C. Azure Arc. D. Azure Virtual Machines. E. Azure File Sync. F. Azure ExpressRoute. And the correct answer is option A. Azure Virtual Desktop. Explanation. Azure Virtual Desktop allows you to enable a secure remote desktop experience from virtually anywhere. You can set up Azure Virtual Desktop, formerly Windows Virtual Desktop, in minutes to enable secure remote work. It is also possible to provide the familiarity and compatibility of Windows 11 with the new scalable multi-session experience for your end users and save cost by using existing eligible Windows licenses. Next question. Dash enables large-scale parallel and high-performance computing batch jobs with the ability to scale to tens, hundreds, or thousands of VMS. And the options are A. Azure Virtual Machines, B. Azure Batch, C. Azure Kubernetes, D. Azure Container Instances, E. Azure Parallel. And the correct answer is option B. Azure Batch. Explanation. Azure Batch enables large-scale parallel and high-performance computing batch jobs with the ability to scale to tens, hundreds, or thousands of VMS. When you are ready to run a job, Batch does the following. Number 1. Starts a pool of compute VMS for you. Number 2. Installs applications and staging data. Number 3. Run jobs with as many tasks as you have. Number 4. Identifies failures. Number 5. Re-queues work. Number 6. Scales down the pool as work completes. Next question. Which of the following Azure plans should you choose for trial and non-production environments? And the options are A. Developer, B. Standard, C. Professional Direct, D. Premier. And the correct answer is option A. Developer. Explanation. Next question. Your dash is your organization's ability to protect from and respond to security threats. And the options are A. Security posture, B. Security standard, C. Security response, D. Security blueprint. And the correct answer is option A. Security posture. Explanation. The objective of defense in depth is to protect information and prevent it from being stolen by those who aren't authorized to access it. A defense in depth strategy uses a series of mechanisms to slow the advance of an attack that aims at acquiring unauthorized access to data. Your security posture is your organization's ability to protect from and respond to security threats. The common principles used to define a security posture are confidentiality, integrity, and availability, known collectively as CIA. Confidentiality. The principle of least privilege means restricting access to information only to individuals explicitly granted access at only the level that they need to perform their work. This information includes protection of user passwords, email content, and access levels to applications and underlying infrastructure. Integrity. Prevent unauthorized changes to information at rest when it's stored, in transit when it's being transferred from one place to another, including from a local computer to the cloud. A common approach used in data transmission is for the sender to create a unique fingerprint of the data by using a one-way hashing algorithm. The hash is sent to the receiver along with the data. The receiver recalculates the data's hash and compares it to the original to ensure that the data wasn't lost or modified in transit. Availability. Ensure that services are functioning and can be accessed only by authorized users. Denial of service attacks are designed to degrade the availability of a system, affecting its users. Next question. A startup is looking to deploy a tool that monitors incoming and outgoing network traffic and decides whether to allow or block specific traffic based on a defined set of security rules. Which of the following would you recommend? And the options are A. A firewall, B. A hub, C. A router, D. A gateway, E. A filter, F. A resource group. And the correct answer is option A. A firewall. Explanation. A firewall is a network security device that monitors incoming and outgoing network traffic and decides whether to allow or block specific traffic based on a defined set of security rules. You can create firewall rules that specify ranges of IP addresses. Only clients granted IP addresses from within those ranges are allowed to access the destination server. Firewall rules can also include specific network protocol and port information. What's Azure Firewall? Azure Firewall is a managed cloud-based network security service that helps protect resources in your Azure virtual networks. A virtual network is similar to a traditional network that you'd operate in your own data center. It's a fundamental building block for your private network that enables virtual machines and other compute resources to securely communicate with each other, the internet, and on-premises networks. Here's a diagram that shows a basic Azure Firewall implementation. Next question. A large organization plans to migrate all their on-prem virtual machines to an Azure pay-as-you-go subscription. Which of the following expenditure models would this migration follow? And the options are A. Operational, B. Elastic, C. Capital, D. Scalable. And the correct answer is option A. Operational. Explanation. One of the major changes that you will face when you move from on-premises cloud to the public cloud is the switch from capital expenditure, buying hardware, to operating expenditure, paying for service as you use it. This switch also requires more careful management of your cost. The benefit of the cloud is that you can fundamentally and positively affect the cost of a service you use by merely shutting down or resizing it when it's not needed. Thank you for watching this video. Buy our AZ 900 premium questions with 50% off. Check link in the description.